Well, hello there. This is Cliff Cerces coming to you again with another edition of Music and the Word with the Cerces. Hey, this is a special broadcast. My sweet wife, Anita Cerces, is going to be with me on the broadcast today. In fact, what we're going to do, and it's because she's specially on this broadcast, all the music today is going to feature her. And here's something she'll be talking about later in the broadcast, a song that she sings so beautifully, written by our good friend Ann Downing. It says, "He'll Deliver You Through."
Red Sea was in front, Egyptians were behind. The people wondered how God's gonna bail us out this time. But the Lord said to Moses, raise your staff and start to move. Then the waters divided as God's children walked right through. He may not deliver you out, but He'll deliver you through. In every situation, God's gonna walk right through with you. When it seems you've reached the end of all that you can do, He may not deliver you out, He'll deliver you through. The king gave the order to bring Daniel to him. Then he had him thrown into the lion's den. God could have stepped right in to bring Daniel out. Instead he chose to stay right there and shut those lions' mouths. He may not deliver you out, but He'll deliver you through. In every situation, God's gonna walk right through with you. When it seems you've reached the end, all that you can do, He may not deliver you out, He'll deliver you through. He may not deliver you out, He'll deliver you through. In every situation, God's gonna walk right through with you. When it seems you've reached the end of all that you can do, He may not deliver you out, He'll deliver you through. He'll deliver you through. He'll deliver you through. He'll deliver you through.
One of our most popular songs that we sing that people request over and over again is Anita coming to sing, "He Didn't Throw the Clay Away."
Empty and broken, I came back to Him, a vessel unworthy, so scarred with
Our good friend Linda Lynn comes to bring us our final song today. Anita sings it so beautifully about the relationship that we have with our Lord, Jesus in me.
Walking the narrow line, just trying to get by. I couldn't find real peace, a life of misery. Then Jesus set me free. Jesus set me free. My soul has taken wing. Now it's Jesus in me. He unlocked a mystery. Now my blinded eyes can see. He said, listen carefully. By my stripes you are free. By his stripes I am saved. By his stripes I am saved. I will never, never be the same. I sing glory to his name. Glory to his At last I have found peace. I am now redeemed. For Jesus set me free. Now it's Jesus in me. Jesus set me free. Jesus set me free. My soul has taken wing. Now it's Jesus in me. Jesus set me free. Jesus set me free. My soul has taken wings. Now it's Jesus in me. My soul has taken wings. Now it's Jesus in me.
Well, this is a real treat for me because I've got Anita, my wife, in the studio with me. Sweet Anita is here in the studio. And I say hi, Anita.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. You hear her all the time. Every single week you hear her sing, but you haven't heard her talk. And she sings good and she talks good too. So I thought we'd maybe share this broadcast together, and we'll probably do this more and more in the days that are ahead. We're just going to kind of get you to know her a little bit better and her background. Now, she comes from a gospel singing family. Her dad is quite famous. Tell us about your dad, Buck Smith.
Well, my dad is Buck Smith from Alabama. He is from the Birmingham, Alabama now, but he has been singing. He sang for almost 60 years. He sang with several different groups, and then in 1970, he formed his own group, the Royal Masters, and they became really well known, especially around the tri-state areas. But
they traveled about a 200-mile radius, didn't they, pretty much?
Yeah, and but they sang on the Grand Ole Gospel Sunday night program.
At the Grand Ole Opry.
At the Grand Ole Opry, they got to sing, and they sang at the Big Bonifay, Florida, singing.
Oh yeah.
One year, and that my dad said was his lifelong dream to get to sing there. He grew up not too far from that area, and in South Alabama, and he was just thrilled when they were asked to sing, and they got an 8:00 spot. I mean, they were right up and sang at 8:00 at night.
Wow!
So the prime time, and they went over well, and I've always been proud of him. He's just he served the Lord singing, and all my life that's what I was raised in.
We often get on the program at dark 30, and well, what's interesting is that J.G. Whitfield from Pensacola, Florida, was one of the major promoters. There's been 6 really major promoters in gospel music. J.G. Whitfield was one of the foremost of those, and he not only was instrumental with the Florida Boys, but also the Dixie Echoes. And if any of you folks remember the Gospel Singing Jubilee program, that was his creation as well. And he took a real liking to your dad's group.
Yes, he did.
And they would sing at
Boutwell Auditorium, Birmingham.
Yeah, and all Blackwoods and Statesmen and J.D. Summer and the Stamps, all the groups would come there. And J.G. would put your dad's group on every one of the programs there, too. Yes. And not so much like to open it, but I mean to be one of the major groups on there. They get some local group to open it, and they were, and of course, they became very, very popular. My father-in-law used to make fun of me for years because what he would do is take his date book and stick it next to the phone, and when people would call up and I say, can your group come on such and such a date? He'd open the book and look and see where they were going to be the rest of that weekend. And if he could, he'd just mark it down and say, yeah. And they kept themselves singing Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon or night. Solid. I mean, for years, many years, with people calling them. Well, I don't know if you folks know how gospel music works, but for the most part, it's very, very few, if any, groups that are in a situation where everybody calls them. And what basically happens is, you've got churches that you go to that know you and like you and want you to return. And they say, when you're going to be in the area, give us a call and we'll schedule you in. And so the process is having to call pastors and arrange things. And some pastors may not know who you are. We call a church and there's a new pastor there and have to kind of acquaint him with our ministry or whatever. I know the first time West Coast tour, Dave Colonna from the Couriers, my good buddy, heard that we were going to go, and he says, how are you lining it up? I says, well, we're going to go, and we're going to sing in Albuquerque, and then we'll work our way over to the Phoenix area and through Arizona, and then we're going to go and find our way to Southern California, work our way all the way up to Night by Night. On the weeknights, we're going to work our way up to Northern California, and then get over to work our way over to Iowa. And he laughed. He says, have you booked all that yet? I said, no. He says, call me when it's all done. You think you're going to go Monday night here and Tuesday night there and Wednesday night here and line it all up? Call me when you're done. And sure enough, man, we were in Albuquerque about 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And with Friday night, we left Oklahoma. Eufaula, Oklahoma. We left that about midnight and had to be in Albuquerque by 8 o'clock the next morning. And if I remember right, we went and we left there about noon. and we found our way to Prescott and Holbrook, Alabama, or not Alabama, but Arizona the next night to sing, and then we sang there the next morning and found our way out around the Phoenix area. But then we were in Bakersfield on Wednesday night, then all the way up by near Modesto, way up toward the northern part of the state for Thursday night, then all the way back down near Anaheim and Orange, below Los Angeles, for Friday night, and then we had to sing at 1:30 in the afternoon. After leaving there 11:30 at night, we had to go all the way up to Redding, California, the very north part of the state, and and then we crisscrossed our way about Idaho. We go east, then we come back west. We go east and go west. And Dave just laughed at me and says, "Yeah, that's how it really is. You take the night that they'll give you." And so we crisscrossed the state so many times. We really got to know California by going just past. We just kept passing the cities we're going to sing in a couple nights later. But your dad didn't do that. I mean, and what's interesting about your dad's group, they could have gone full time. Most full-time groups were singing about 6 different concerts a week. Your dad was singing 4. He had a good job, and so did the people in his group. And explain about how your dad, why he didn't take the group full-time. It's kind of interesting. He could have easily done that.
He actually, a couple of the group members were talking to him and asking him why they didn't go full-time. And my dad was just of the belief that, you need to take care of your family, and there's so many gospel groups out there that was starting. They were not really able to make the money that they needed to make and take care of their family. And my dad did not want the people in his group or himself to have to go through that. My dad had a great job. He was a branch manager for a major tile company, and he had a great job, and the others had a great job. So he thought, let's just do what we're doing, because what they were doing was just about as much as any full-time group anyway. And so that's how he decided that he would do his job and everything during the week, and then on the weekends he would go and sing. And that way that he could do his ministry, but he could also fend for his family.
That's really smart. That's very, very wise.
Yeah.
And as a result, they pretty much stuck to a 200-mile radius. A lot of groups had to go all around the United States, us included. We go coast to coast and in Canada to keep ourselves busy. We weren't so widely known in any small area, okay? And some people know who we are in California, and they know who we are in Canada, and they know who we are back east and Pennsylvania and Texas and Alabama and places, but some people 50 miles around here that have groups in here have never even heard of us. It's kind of how it works. But everybody knew your dad's group. Everybody.
I remember one weekend that I was in I think 4th grade, and I remember us going to Augusta, Georgia, and that was probably as far as we ever traveled. And we actually came home from Augusta, Georgia on, I believe it was Sunday night, because I remember getting in very late and having to get up very early and get ready and go to school, and I was really tired that whole day. But that was absolutely the exception to the rule. We usually were not very far out and everything on Sunday nights, so that everybody could get home and the kids could go to school and the parents could go work.
Now, you actually didn't sing in the group. It was a male quartet, no. But you went along very, very often. You sometimes were at your home church, and sometimes you were on the bus at your dad's concerts. And what's interesting is, but your dad would have you sing solo sometimes, wouldn't he, in the services?
When I got up older and I started doing some singing, Dad would have me get up and sing a solo, and that I did that some, and that kind of helped me get going, singing and stuff. So he was behind me doing, singing and everything, and always let me sing if I wanted to. So
now your dad's 90 years old, going to be 91 December 29th,
yes,
and he's not been in good health here recently. And here's the sad thing that happened. Your dad sang the first tenor part. Okay, for you folks that may not understand, that's the very, very high part. And when you sing it real high, you sing a B flat above middle C. That is a high, high note. And he used to sing them all night long. And he was 85 years old and still singing first tenor and doing it very, very well. He was a legend all throughout Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, that whole area. But what happened was he had a stroke. And when that happened, he couldn't sing again. And that was a very, very sad thing. For the last 5 years, he wasn't able to sing. They had a substitute come in, and then he retired the group, and the group members went, and most all of them that wanted to joined other groups. But your dad, it just hurts him so much that he hasn't had a chance to continue to sing. But you never know what happens. The Lord can cause that to turn around and everything. Your dad. Your dad's got a lot of want to. He was a great singer. In fact, Brian Free, the famous singer from Gold City, and of course now Brian Free in Assurance, your dad was his role model growing up, and he often talked about that. We, when the Booth brothers, who are really good friends of ours, when they got their new member, Paul Lancaster, it was kind of interesting because remember what happened that night?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. You were so proud.
Yeah, we were talking to Ronnie Booth, and he said he called Paul over and said, y'all got to meet our new singer, and he told Paul he wanted him to meet some good friends. So Ronnie introduced him, and he said that he's from Gadsden, Alabama. And I just spoke up and said, well, my dad has a quartet that's from Birmingham, Alabama area. And he said, oh, really? Who is the group? And I said, well, the Royal Masters. And he said, his eyes got big, and he says, your dad's Buck Smith? Really? Buck Smith's your dad? Are you serious? I just love Buck Smith. He's one of the reasons I'm in gospel music today. And I was just, that just made me feel really good.
Well, your dad started singing in groups probably in 1961, 62, something like that, and did that pretty continuously. Yeah. So that you wind up reaching a lot of people, and a lot of folks that.
He sang a lot with the pro groups, and then later on, as he got older, and he was still singing, but he also started doing promotion work in the Birmingham area, and was promoting and bringing in a lot of the groups. So he got to know a lot of the big groups, and he was dear friends with like Randy Shellnut and
from the Dixie Echoes,
and then
had Greater Vision often in, just too many groups to name. I mean, all the the Perrys used to come, and I remember one night. Libby Perry is kind of short. Is she 5 foot or not even 5 foot maybe? And they were starting to sing, and your dad, he's quite a character. He comes out on stage. He found an old milk carton that was backstage. He came out and stuck it there, and he told Libby, I got this so you could stand on it so people could see you. So anyway.
Well, Randy Shellnut told me one day we were talking, and he said that if all promoters were as good as Buck Smith, things would be great. It would all be great, and that just made me feel so good. He said he really knew how to treat the singers, and he was just always so good, and he wished that all of them were like him.
Well, Randy Shellnut in the Dixie Echoes, they've been close to your dad in this group for years. In fact, Randy's dad, Dale Shellnut, was quite a legend in gospel music and in the Dixie Echoes for years. And when he passed away, your dad, Randy, wanted your dad to go ahead and promote in the Birmingham area the memorial sing for his dad, Dale Shellnut. Right. And so because he knew it would be done right. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of interesting that your dad's touched so many lives. Joseph Smith, who was later in the Booth Brothers and then also in the Mark Trammell trio at that time, came up through your dad's group. And Rodney Lasham, who played for the Hinsons, used to play for your dad's group earlier. Yeah. And I'm just trying to think here. Didn't David Maddox, who later went with Willie Wynn, who used to be the tenor for the Oak Ridge Boys and Willie Wynn and the Tennesseans, David Maddox was one of the members of the group. Right. And of course, He went with the Tennesseans, and then our good friend Buddy Poe, who's now pastoring the church in Hueytown, Alabama. It's kind of our second church home, okay?
Yeah.
And he was one of the original members of your dad's group. In fact, they sang in several groups together, and then of course he went on to be the bass singer for Naomi and the Seagulls, and the Seagull Brothers and Naomi, I think they were called back then. And so your dad kind of had a school almost for people that they kind of went through Buck Smith School to go on and promote. And your dad never really stood in the way. I know Joseph Smith wasn't with your dad's group very long when the Perfect Heart contacted him and said, we'd like to have you come. And he had just really joined the group a really rather small time. And he went to your dad, and your dad said, go, we'll find somebody else. Go, I don't want to stand in your way. And of course, went from Perfect Heart to the Booth Brothers and then to the Mark Trammell trio. So, I mean, your dad's really been generous to help mentor people. What I love about your dad, I love a lot of things about your dad. My dad passed away 25 years ago, October 24th of 1994. He passed away and left a big, big hole in me. And when your dad came into my life, really, I had another dad, and it was just such a pleasure to have someone that would fill some of that role. I mean, no one could replace my dad, but if anybody could come close, it was your dad. And so he became our dad. And what was so precious about that is that he was he still is a person that mentors folks, and he's always tucking someone under his wing and always helping somebody. And so how young were you when you used to get on the bus? I've heard them say that you got on the bus and you get on the bus and say, okay, where are we going today? Like you were in charge or something.
Well, the bus stayed parked sometimes at our house. And when it was parked at our house, I'd just run and get on and say, okay, Daddy, where are we going now? I didn't care where we were going. I just wanted to go. I probably was around 12 or 13 at that point. But I had been going to singings. There was a couple of years there that I wanted to stay with my granny. I loved my granny, and I was really close to her. And there was some time that I stayed with her instead of going to the singings, and I went to my church. But for the most part, most of my life, I mean, since I can remember, I've been going to gospel singings with my dad's group. And Mom would go and I would go with her, and she'd take care of me while Daddy was up singing, of course. And then as I got older, I wanted to go, and I actually gave my heart to the Lord at a gospel singing.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 11 years old, and we were at Shiloh Baptist Church in Helena, Alabama area. And the lead singer's oldest daughter, well, the middle daughter, but Sherry, she, during a song, I believe it was The Lighthouse that Buddy Poe was singing that night, she didn't even wait for an invitation. She got up and she went to the altar and gave her heart to the Lord. And so then they opened up the altar for anyone else, and me and the lead singer's youngest daughter both went up, and we both got saved that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It was amazing.
Well, see that, and you've often told me that's one of the reasons why you believe in the ministry of gospel music, because you gave your heart to the Lord at a gospel concert.
Absolutely.
Wow. Hey, what's also interesting to me is that we met really because of gospel music. We had some mutual gospel music friends, and through them we kind of met each other. And they were talking to me about. They knew you well, so they were talking to me about you, and some of the people you knew me well, even though we didn't know each other. They were telling you about me, and eventually. I remember a time when I was going to be going on a trip, and it would have been about an hour and a half out of my way to go down through Birmingham, Alabama. And I believe I called and talked to you on the phone a few times, and I said, "Hey, listen, can I swing by and take you to dinner?" And I took my heart in my hand when I found out that when I called you, I interrupted you while you were watching an Alabama Crimson Tide football field, and I mean a football game. And if I've learned anything in my life, I've learned that nothing is to interrupt you when you're watching an Alabama Crimson Tide. You were raised just a stone's throw from Tuscaloosa, and I mean you are You are probably the biggest Alabama fan that I know of. You even made one out of me. I made a Yankees fan out of you, and you made you made an Alabama fan out of me. So we kind of. But I'll tell you the truth. I kind of interrupted you when I called you on the phone, and someone gave me your number, and I called you on the phone and interrupted you during the Alabama game, and I didn't know how dangerous that was until later in life when I found out what that could have been the end of the situation right there. But we actually I came by and took you to dinner. We met in late 1999, and then the phone bill is horrendous. That was before 10 cents a minute. That was before cell phones or anything else. Oh, my word. I got this thing in the mail. I thought it was a letter from the president talking about the national debt. It turned out to be my phone call, my phone bill. And but what we did, we would I would get away as much as I could and run down 10 hours to Alabama to come see you.
Yeah.
And, and then it was in April of the next year that we got married. It'll be 20 years this coming April.
Yeah,
it's been a great 20 years. But it was interesting how gospel music got us together. Yeah. We got married in April. We started this group in August. Yeah. Can you believe that? It was a trio. My son Mark was our first lead singer, and then we had a young lady named Tamara with us, and then Varlin came along, and after that Terry was with us for years, and Terry was a great lead singer with our group, but then he had a job change, and so we couldn't still travel the way we were, and so Terry had to leave. But and then Darren came with us for about a year or so, and Andy came with us after that, singing the lead part. And then when Andy left, it was kind of interesting because I called Terry and I said, "Hey Terry, can you help us for a weekend or two until we get somebody else?" And his job had changed. In fact, he had his own business then. He could arrange his own hours and everything else at that point. And so he was able to come and work around our full-time schedule. We probably sang 4 or 5 concerts a week. And, we would sometimes go on a week tour. But he was able to keep his business operating from the road and whatever. And so I just say, can you help us for a weekend or so? I got a couple of weekends coming up here till we get somebody. And he did, I think, 1 or 2 weekends with us. He says, can I come back? We said, oh, of course. And so he stayed with us for the next 7 years or so.
Yeah.
Until he had another job change that kind of his business closed with the economy. And and we really felt that at that point, the two of us would just go out together. The churches knew us so well. We've been going to the same churches for years, and they knew us. So we just kept the third part on the track, so that we kept our trio sound, so that we still have the trio sound today, even though it's just the two of us,
Right.
And someone said that if you can talk out of both sides of your mouth, maybe you can sing out of both sides of your mouth. I don't know if that's really true or not, but we've had a good time doing that, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and you've been a wonderful partner to travel with, Anita.
You too.
Tell you what, I love seeing you down at the altar, working with people and praying them through, and counseling with folks. And you've been involved in women's ministries, and we help Ann Downing every year for a weekend. We help her with her big Middle Tennessee women's retreat. It's probably the best. When I say one of the best women's retreats, or maybe the greatest women's retreat I've ever been at, you say, Cliff, what are you doing at a women's retreat? Well, for years in groups that I've been, we've sung at women's retreats many, many, many times, and I've gone in there to help with sound issues and other things. And for a denomination, I would go in there and have some denominational responsibilities. And so I've been to many, many women conferences, but nothing like Ann's. And she brings in a lot of her Gaither friends. And we've had a great time for about 5 years. This will be year number 6 in April.
Yeah.
When we're going to be there, pretty much about our anniversary time too. So that's going to be a lot of fun being in Nashville area for that. Well, do you enjoy getting out on the road and singing?
I do. I enjoy traveling, and enjoy seeing new places. But I really enjoy being able to get up and sing and spread God's word through music. And when someone comes to me and said to tell me that I was a blessing to them, that just makes everything worth it. And when you see a teenager go back and find their aunt because God used you to keep the service going long enough for her to do that, and with a testimony, that I gave, she went back, and it was nothing I did except for minding the Lord, and gave her heart to the Lord.
Well, that was in Mississippi,
That was
wasn't
in
it?
Mississippi,
I remember
and
that night.
and we
13 years old, she just wept her way to God.
And we went back a few years later, and they said that she was in a bigger church with a bigger youth group, and she was really on fire for the Lord. And there's so many others that that we've been able to minister to, and they come by and they talk to you, and they may have a problem or something, and just listening to them goes so far.
Oh yeah.
And just knowing that God is using you in a way, in some way, when you get out there, it is worth all that you do.
Well, I'll tell you what. The song you sang earlier in the broadcast, "He Didn't Throw the Clay Away," has really become one of our most requested. In fact, maybe the most requested song that we do. And you have just a way of, in sincerity, just putting a song across and just communicating the message in a beautiful way. And you're a crowd favorite everywhere we go. And you're a good driver too. I've gotten hurt, and I wound up on crutches and in a wheelchair and stuff for a little bit, and for a period of time. In fact, I'm still not 100%. I'm still in the wheelchair some and using the crutches some. And so you've been the driver since beginning of August when I got hurt. You have for the last 3 months now, just about, been the driver, and you still are. Now Saturday morning I got to drop you off someplace. I'm going to drive for the first time Saturday morning. Everybody get off the streets and be careful. But
watch out in Branson.
That's right. Well, did you ever think you were going to sing in a gospel group and travel all over the country? And you had some role models growing up. You had three, especially, didn't you?
I did. It was always a dream of mine to sing gospel music, and then I loved gospel music. And then they go by the Nealons now. Back then they were the Rex Nealon singers, but Kelly Nealon and Clark and Karen Peck and Janet Pascal. Yeah, they all were. I loved them. I would put in their music on the radio, and I'd start singing my heart out, and I always had this dream to sing gospel music. I just wanted to.
Well, certainly in your blood from your dad.
Yeah,
and your sisters sing too.
Right, and I would just sing to the top of my lungs to those songs, and the Nealons were a big part of getting me to singing a lot and stuff, and
in your dad's programs, yeah.
Yeah, I sang at least one of Kelly Nealon's songs at my dad's concert. I'll Talk to the Father for You.
Oh, that's a great song.
It's a great song, and that was one of the ones I sang, and God is so good.
And with our group, we've done for 1,000 tongues,
Yeah.
and we need to start singing that again. That's a great song.
And God is so good because He's allowed me to get to meet Kelly and get to know her some, and
you know her quite well.
Yeah,
we've done quite several concerts with the Nealons, and also with Karen Peck in New River, and they've become dear friends. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I love seeing you guys together.
It is just,
and you
it's
got with
amazing.
Janet Pascal a little while ago and stuff.
Yeah, got to meet her and tell her how she helped me in my life and my singing and stuff. So that's so good for God to allow you to get to meet those role models.
I don't think I've ever got a chance to tell you this. I remember the look on your face when we got the message from Amber, Kelly Nealon's daughter, that sings with the group, that she often would sit on the bus, and when they're going down the road, she'd play our DVD. And when you heard that, man, your face just went, "What? They're listening to our DVD?"
Yeah.
And so that was, I saw just the pleasure you had in there that they would listen to it. But they're great friends, and they have a great ministry. They just. We did a concert with them just 2 years ago, I guess it was, and maybe 2.5 years ago.
And the
last time we've done, we've sung with them in Pigeon Forge quite a few times, and at some of the fanfare concerts down there when they used to be held there, and not in Kentucky like they are now. And we've just in various places we've been with them. And
the last time we were with them, and we heard them, and we were with them in concert in a church, I got to introduce them.
Oh, I remember that.
And that was amazing. That was so amazing to get to introduce one of my main role models, and how she has impacted my life. And then I get to introduce her and her family group to come up to sing. That was just so wonderful.
Well, Psalm 34 says it so clearly that when you delight yourself in the Lord, He'll give you the desires of your heart. And how interesting that you really kind of watched them afar from on the stage and all that, never dreaming that they'd become your friends. Ann Downing's another one, too, that you really had as someone you really admired, and to have Ann be such a close friend of yours today.
I would also look at the like Kim and Dean Hopper. I was at a concert when they first entered. The Greens announced that Kim was going to marry Dean, and of course Tony, the late great Tony Green, he was hysterical. He was so funny about how they weren't going to go down the road being the green grasshoppers.
Well, we were in a concert. We were with Tony Green on a Saturday night, and then he passed away the next Monday, just a few days later. That was so shocking.
Yeah, it really was.
So absolutely shocking to have seen him. So the last song he sang on the stage that night was he's singing in the Hallelujah chorus. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And it was just a big thing. And
But one of my biggest desire was seeing them with their husbands, and the wives with their husbands, going around singing and serving the Lord together in a music group. That's what I wanted to do. I said, God, that's what I want to do. That was my big desire.
Wow.
God gave me that desire.
I'll tell you, God really uses you. We've seen how God used you. And it's not just there. You have been the head of a women's ministry in a local church. And we've also, when we were on staff for years at a church, and we didn't go out and sing very much at that time. And I'm also remembering that you've been in youth camps or in kids camps. You've been a great teacher and a Sunday school teacher and a children's worker. And in our own church, Faith and Wisdom Church, is pastored by Gary and Carol McSpadden. A lot of you folks that remember gospel music will remember Gary McSpadden, who was with he was with everybody, wasn't he? He was with the Gaither Trio, and he was the original member of the Gaither Vocal Band. He was the original member of the Imperials. He was with Bob Wills and the Inspirationals. He was with the Oak Ridge Boys in the early 60s, and he, even at 19 years old, took Jake Hess's place in the Statesman when Jake got sick for a little while, and for I guess a few months or whatever. And we've been blessed to be part of their church. And you work in the children's ministry there.
Yeah.
And that's just, I know that working with children is really dear to your heart.
I love children. I love children. I love working with the women also. I mean, both have been just great. God's been really good.
Yeah. So what's on the horizon? What's coming up in the days ahead? What do you expect is going to be happening next?
I'm not sure. I believe that we're going to be continuing some of our ministry together and singing and things like that. But I'm not sure exactly what God has in store. But I know we both love our church, and we're both committed to our church. And I'm there for whatever God has for me to do.
Well, it seems like, too, that God is starting to lead us in the area of missions. And so it looks like there might be some missions trips for the two of us in the offing in the days ahead. And I went, where I went was kind of rough. It was way out there in the Amazon jungle. It took, in fact, once you got to where there wasn't any more road, you traveled for 9 hours and got to where there was no more road. Then you'd have to get in a canoe and go the last 90 miles by canoe to get to where we went to. And then you had to walk a mile to get into the village. And so that might have been a little rough for you to go along on that. We went on a couple trips like that. But we have some other things coming up in Ecuador that I'll be going to that are really not so far off the beaten path. And going in there and being able to work with the children, the interpreters kind of help you with that. And what an incredible thing that there were a couple ladies that went with us on the last trip, and they were working with the children. And it was incredible. It was just absolutely incredible what was happening there. So I can see you doing that in the days ahead. And we're really excited that you're with us, because 3.5 years ago you were in a car wreck that you almost did not walk away from.
Yeah, absolutely.
This guy went out, he crossed over the line, went out of control, and in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, he was traveling about 80 miles an hour, and he got in your lane, and he couldn't control the car, hit you head on.
Yeah.
Hit you head on and turned the car around and turned you back another probably about 100 feet almost, and then 25 feet down into a ditch. It was...
And struck a tree.
And struck a tree.
Yeah, God is amazing. There's no way I should have lived through. As a matter of fact, there was a dear friend of mine that we were going to church with at the time. She saw the car and didn't know I was okay, and she busted into tears and said there's no way she could have lived through that. It was God that I lived, and I really, the major thing that happened was my ACL. I lost my ACL, which holds your kneecap in place, and a couple of years later, I found myself on my having fallen directly on my kneecap because of that, and broke about 4 bones. So that was a pretty major deal to have to go through, but I'm still alive. So thank the Lord for that.
But the Lord had more for you to do, and
absolutely.
Broke my heart to see how hurt you were and everything else, but God brought you through that. And the song you sang earlier in the broadcast that we featured quite a lot on the program here, but talk about Ann's song that we sang about how God doesn't always
we go through a lot, and you may be battling things that you don't understand why you're having to go through it, and you're thinking, Lord, why can't you just pull me out of this? Why can't you just take me out of this and not have to go through it? And sometimes he does. Sometimes he will take you out of something, and you don't have, it could have worked out that I didn't have to go through that wreck, but there was a reason for it. I don't know what the reason was, but there was a reason. And sometimes you face battles, you face trials that you don't want to go through, but if you'll just allow him to, God will walk with you through that battle. He went through the fiery furnace with the 3 Hebrew children.
Yes, he did.
And he will go through that battle with you. And Ann's song tells about it so well.
Ann Downing, that's who wrote it. Yeah.
And everything, it tells about it so well. And, if I can take a little bit of time to give a kind of a family testimony. Talking about trials, about 6 months or so ago, my dear cousin Wanda was given the news that she had stage 4 lung cancer, something you don't ever want to hear. And the way she contracted it was that years ago she worked for a marina, and before she knew about hazmat, anything, and how to protect yourself, cleaning up stuff, there was a mercury spill, and she cleaned up 10 pounds of mercury without any kind of anything, any kind of protection for herself, and that made her sick, and she battled some problems through that and everything, and it wound up giving her lung cancer. And so for the last 5-6 months, we've all been praying. We've had people praying, and she's been on the Facebook with prayers and belief, and she was believing that she had faith. God is going to heal me. I know he's going to heal me. He's going to take care of me. And she's been having prayers come up, and she's been going in on Facebook and praying for others, all the others with cancer and everything. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was flipping through my Facebook real quick to see what was going on, because we had been at in a convention and I hadn't really looked at it. And I ran across one of my sister's posts, and she was talking about what a wonderful thing that had happened with Wanda, and she was so happy and all. And I'm like reading this, and it sounds like, that she was healed, and I'm getting excited, and then I found Wanda's daughter, her post where it said that her mom had gotten her PET scan back the day before, and it was cancer free.
Oh, wow.
So God healed my cousin from stage 4 cancer. And yes, she had to go through 6 months of battle and everything. But she stood firm, and she stood on the word of God, and she said, God, I believe, I have faith, and you're going to heal me. And her family was behind her on it. And we were all praying for her, and she has been healed, and we are just so thrilled about that.
Well, it goes back to the song that you sang earlier in the broadcast, that sometimes we hope that God will keep us from something, but he sometimes brings us through it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he always deals with it, and he always causes things to happen in a way that are good for us, and that will be for our benefit. And what an incredible thing that he brought her through that thing in such a beautiful way.
Yes, very incredible.
Well, so when you were a little girl and had all these dreams about things, did you ever envision what your life was going to be? Did you ever even begin to imagine what would happen for your life?
No, I never imagined the things that God would do for me, and things that he would bring me through, and everything. I mean, and finding someone who loves me the way that I know you love me is remarkable, and
well, I love being loved by you, I'll tell you.
It's just it's exciting. It's something new all the time. We never know what to expect. God's just amazing.
Well, a lot of people live in their own 2x4 plans, and they never ever comprehend or become even aware of the kind of plans that God has for them that could be available to them. And I know that's very, very true. And that could be very, very true of someone that we're talking to today, someone that is listening to this broadcast today. Because, it's so easy to go through life and just kind of meander around and just kind of stumble around and let life go on and just try to find what's there for you or whatever. But, it is really something when you take your life like you did as a young girl and turn it over to the Lord and give your heart to the Lord and just say, Lord, I just want to have your plans. I want to have your ideas for my life. And we may be talking to somebody, we probably are, that's listening to this broadcast today, that they don't know what's ahead. They don't know what possibility is out there, and they don't know what to decide that they want to choose, because they don't even know what the choices are. They don't even know what the possibilities are. They don't even know what it is that God could do possibly in their lives. Well, boy, that's the person that we're talking to right now, that we want you to understand that God's got plans for you that you don't even know about. And not something you have to sit down and figure out or have to go and try to envision what's going to happen. Trust him and turn your life over to him and just allow him to come into control. And who would have thought that somebody that lived in the state of Missouri would meet someone that lives down in the state of Alabama, and God would put them together, and here they would have so many mutual friends and so much mutual interest in gospel music. And here it's amazing the mutual friends that we had, and we had never met. We were 530 miles apart. But see, that didn't mean anything to God. God found a way of bringing us together and causing us to meet. Because when you let God be in control of your life, he brings to you possibilities that you never, ever, ever would have otherwise. I want to pray for you as we go off the broadcast today. Let's pray and ask God to direct your life. Lord, we pray for this one that is not sure what's ahead. Might be a young person, might be someone that's a middle-aged person. They're just saying, Lord, what's going on for the rest of my life? How are you going to guide and direct me, Lord. What do you have in my life? Sometimes as a senior citizen that says, Lord, is it all over? Is there anything that I can do for you? I was 67 years old when all of a sudden I got the opportunity to go to the mission field for the first time, and you arranged that, Lord. You caused that to happen. We're never too old, and it's never too late for you to open doors and cause a great adventure to happen in our lives. And I pray that you'll do that for somebody we're praying for today. Let them take their hands off of the reins, take their hands off of the steering wheel, so to speak, and allow you to have control of their life. And Lord, I pray that you will take control in such a way that you will open the doors that you want to have open for them. Lord, you will cause the opportunities to find them. And that, Lord, somebody that says, I want to work for you, I want to make a difference, I want to lead people to Jesus. Lord, cause things to happen so that becomes something that you bring to them, Lord, the opportunity, and you bring to them, Lord, the ability, Lord, to be able to do the things that will just influence someone to come to you. And we thank you for it, Jesus. We ask it in your name. Amen. Well, this has been a different kind of a broadcast, hasn't it? And so what a beautiful thing. I'm glad you're with me today, honey. And we'll do this again. And let's come back the same time, same station next week, once more to come back for another session of Music and the Word with the Cerces.